You know, sometimes in these ancient texts, you find a single phrase, maybe just a couple of words, that is so packed with meaning it can totally change how you see everything. Today, we're diving into one of those. It's a two-word bombshell from the New Testament. And the wildest part? It's not a claim made by a follower or a prophet. It's supposedly a direct quote from God the Father to the Son. And yeah, it changes everything.
Okay, we are not going to ease into this one. We're jumping straight into the deep end, right to the core of this whole ancient mystery.
So here's the big question, the one that frames our entire investigation today. It's incredibly bold, but if you ask the ancient book of Hebrews, the answer is a surprisingly clear and kind of startling yes.
And here it is, the verse itself. The writer of Hebrews is quoting God the Father talking to the Son. And the phrase that stops you in your tracks is right there. Oh God. Now this isn't just describing what he's like. It's a title, a name, a direct address. So where on earth did this electrifying quote even come from? Was this some new Christian invention?
To figure that out, we've got to put on our detective hats and start tracing the evidence back, way back. And what we find when we follow the paper trail of manuscripts is, honestly, a surprisingly clear verdict from the ancient world.
So what's so fascinating here is that the author of Hebrews isn't making anything up. He's quoting Psalm 45, which is this ancient Jewish song for a king's coronation. And in the original Hebrew, the king is called Elohim, the Hebrew word for God. But it gets better. Centuries before Jesus was even born, Jewish scholars translated this into Greek, and they kept that direct address, "O God." So the New Testament writer is just quoting a well-established, respected Jewish interpretation of this text.
And listen, from a pure grammar perspective, this thing is a locked case. The Greek phrase used here, ho theos, is in what's called the vocative case. Now that just means it's the specific grammatical form you absolutely have to use when you're talking directly to someone. It's the difference between saying, the king is in the room, and hey king, great to see you. The grammar literally forces the reading, the Father is calling the Son God.
And this slide, wow, this really drives the point home. It wasn't just the people who spoke Greek who got this. I mean, look at this list. Every single major ancient translation of the New Testament, whether it was in Latin for the Romans, Syriac for the Middle East, or Coptic down in Egypt, they all translate it the exact same way. The Father addresses the Son as God. On this point, the ancient world is basically speaking with one unified voice.
So let's just pause right here for a second. The historical evidence, the textual evidence, it's all crystal clear about what the verse says. There's really no debate among scholars on that front. But that just brings up a much, much trickier question. What in the world does it actually mean? Because, and you're not going to believe this, the very next verse seems to throw a giant wrench into the whole thing.
Right when you think, okay, case closed, the author of Hebrews hits us with a major curveball. The text just keeps going and a puzzle pops up that seems like it could unravel everything we'd just established. And here is the paradox, right there in black and white. Verse 8, the Son is called God. But then verse 9 says, therefore God, your God, has anointed you. Wait, what? How can you be God and also have a God? This isn't some problem we're making up centuries later. This tension is baked right into the original text, side by side. So, how do we solve this? Well, the answer isn't to just pick a favorite verse and ignore the other one. The real breakthrough comes when we realize the problem might not be with the text. The problem might be with us, with the modern definitions and categories we try to force onto these ancient words. Okay, first, we've got to tweak how we think about the word angel. For these ancient writers, it didn't primarily mean a creature with wings and a halo. It just meant messenger. It's a job description, not a species. So the whole comparison happening in Hebrews 1 isn't God versus some other type of creature. It's a comparison between all the previous messengers and the one final ultimate messenger.
All right, next up is the word begotten. When Hebrews quotes that famous line, "Today I have begotten you," it's pulling from a psalm about a king's coronation. And in that royal world, begetting wasn't about biology. It was political language for being put on the throne. It was the public declaration that said, "This is my chosen king. This is my heir." And that leads us to the most important word of all, son. In this ancient royal world, son basically meant heir. It's a legal status. The Son is the one who is legally designated to inherit everything the Father has, his kingdom, his authority, and yes, even his very nature and his name. And this right here, this is the key that unlocks the whole puzzle. Okay, let's take those ancient definitions, messenger, enthroned, and heir, and go back to that big contradiction.
Because when we put our ancient glasses on, we're about to see it dissolve into a picture that is perfectly coherent and incredibly powerful.
So first, think of it this way. In ancient thought, the title Father was fundamentally about being the source. The Father is the eternal wellspring, the fountainhead from which everything else, life, authority, nature itself, flows.
And here is where it all just clicks into place. Just follow the logic. 1. The Father is the eternal source of divinity. 2. The Son is the perfect, designated heir. 3. It follows that the heir has to fully inherit the nature and the name of the source. And therefore, 4, it's not just possible, it's totally logical for the source, the Father, to address his own heir by the family name, God.
And poof, just like that, the contradiction is gone. It was never really there. Verse 8 calls the Son God, because, as the heir, he fully inherits the divine nature. And verse 9 says the Son has a God, because the Father is his eternal source. One verse is about what he is by nature, the other is about who he is in relationship to the Father. They're two sides of the same coin.
And once you see this, so many other parts of the New Testament just light up. I mean, think about that famous line from Jesus, "Whoever has seen me has seen the Father." How is that even possible? Well, it's possible if you understand him as the perfect heir, the one who so completely inherits the nature of the source that he becomes the perfect, living, breathing image of that source.
You know, at the end of the day, solving this whole puzzle doesn't come from some clever new argument. It comes from a bit of humility, from setting aside our modern baggage and learning to let an ancient text speak on its own terms. And that really just leaves us with a much bigger question to chew on. What other mysteries, what other profound truths are just sitting there, waiting to be unlocked? If only we could learn to see the world through their eyes.